So the concept of across was that it incorporated same as 6G-OPTICON domain orchestrators. So we would expect that the domain would accumulate aspects of intelligence, orchestration, automation, other stuff as well. We have multiple orchestrators governing domains. These orchestrators would need to communicate with common APIs towards the infrastructure that they were governing, and each orchestrator would govern a specific infrastructure. Then we had on top a layer similar to 6G-OPTICON, a multi-domain orchestrator that would convert and orchestrate several domain orchestrators when the need was in place. So when you had a multi-domain service that would span across several infrastructures, this is where the multi-domain orchestrator came into play. It fostered the same aspects or similar aspects as the domain orchestrators. It had to include monitoring, reasoning, intelligence, automation, etc., etc. And this was where the project stakeholders would need to intervene and play with exposed UI and NBIs of the multi-domain orchestrators, so they could validate their end-user services on top of the project offered services that the project offered. So, of course, we had to have an integration fabric between the orchestrators, and this was where known telco APIs were elected, which are the TM Forum APIs. And then this comprised the first major concept of across, which was the scalable end-to-end service orchestration platform, just how we described it now. The second aspect was indeed the standardized communication interface, and this is where TM Forum interfaces came across, which define, if you don't know, TM Forum defines the open digital architecture, which splits let's say the layers from product, service, and resource. And then we had deep end-to-end telemetry, and this end-to-end telemetry had to dwell into domain level, but multi-domain level as well, of course, integrating different aspects. And we had a federation of telemetry data, federating, for instance, the multi-domain orchestrator federated multiple domain orchestrator telemetry instances. We had the intelligent sector, which again resides in both orchestrators, so it had to take some autonomous actions, but quite limited in terms of across. We had the full stack automation, which was the automation engine residing within every orchestrator. And we had the security aspect, where we needed the interconnectivity between the orchestrators or the expansion of orchestrators into new domains to happen in a secure and trusted way. Last but not least, all this platform was validated and it was driven by test cases definition and deployment. So we would validate that indeed our, let's say, developments and what we delivered actually worked. And then these test cases, we selected specific of these test cases to be introduced in catalysts and SDO proof of concept programs, so as to demonstrate to the outer audience outside the project and the commission that this solution actually made sense in a broader environment. So this is the concept, more or less. I will try to briefly introduce the architecture so you could already can see, similarities. So let me start from the bottom. So we would expect that we had, as we've said, the infrastructure layer, where we have several domains, and the domains comprised of typical division of cloud, transport, core, and run, let's say, aspects. Of course, not every domain would need to incorporate every aspect, but this is the reason that we wanted to have multiple orchestrators, domain orchestrators. Then we had the domain orchestration level, which was, let's say, the entity that need to incorporate all these controllers and offer an orchestration logic and layer. We had the secure integration fabric, which offered, as the name suggests, a zero trust connectivity fabric on top and actually towards the domain orchestrator. So it was a vertical security fabric at this point, but also a horizontal one across every domain orchestrator. We had then the multi-domain service orchestrator, which interconnected through the zero trust connectivity fabric with the managed domains, and specifically the domain orchestrators through common APIs, which was the Teamform APIs. And this orchestrator, along with the domain orchestrator, offered a portal that role-based stakeholders would interact with to create domain or multi-domain services and products, etc., and catalogs. So the catalogs is where, if I may call it, the menu of each orchestrator would be exposed. So the catalog comprised of two type of services. At Across, we remained at the service and resource level. Now we will need to expand to the product layer as well, but this is something that the same data models confirm, the Teamform ones. But then the services in Across split in two, let's say, main categories, were the platform services, where we offered services that enabled these aspects of Across, AI services, analytics services, telemetry as a service, compute as a service, etc. And the user defined services that we expect that external stakeholders would onboard, that would leverage the platform services to offer a specific business functionality. For instance, someone could order, let's say, compute clusters, storage clusters, or analytics on top of them in a specific domain, and then the user wanted to, or multi-domain, and then the user wanted to deploy an application that would make, to leverage this infrastructure deployed. All this in a close to 100% automation manner as possible. Along, we had, you cannot go without, let's say, project repository that we, of course, kept the source code of specific components developed within Across, plus, let's say, or would complement the other open source repositories that we contributed code, as you shall see later on. It hosted the CI/CD pipelines that you had to have for Across, and it had the registry for images and Helm charts. More or less, the architecture, I think, resembles Opticon, and it makes sense because Opticon architecture was based on it. But now we have to see how we will augment it more with AI aspects, because the orchestration was already tackled in a very, I would say, acceptable manner, even in today's terms. But mainly it was based on rule-based actions and, let's say, less intelligence, which we shall now augment.